Hey guys, it's Chelsea, and before we dive into this awesome new series, The 15-Minute Budget, I'd like to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Monarch. So for those of you who don't know, I used to be a Mint Power user. I loved that app. It was how I initially started tracking my budget way back when I had a ruined credit score and was like deathly afraid of even looking at my bank accounts. But over the years, it really became like my tool and touchstone to just staying plugged into my financial life, even well after I didn't really need to be worried about my money like that anymore. So when Mint was going away, it was extremely important for me to find the right replacement to become my catch-all budgeting / money management app. So I started using Monarch, which was not only started by some former employees of Mint, but also I find to be a very familiar and easy to use user experience, and just generally makes me feel like I have a hold on my money at all times. The goal of the 15-minute budget is to show you that managing your money doesn't have to be a chore, and Monarch is the perfect tool to help you take the extra energy out of managing that money. You can use it to budget, set goals, and actually understand where your money's going with no guesswork needed on your end. And you don't even have to take my word for it because Monarch was named the best Mint replacement by Forbes. And there are also no ads or selling your financial data to third parties, just a clean, secure app that makes finances feel simple. Monarch helps you manage money your way with a flexible budgeting system that's built for real life, custom categories, and a full view of all your accounts and transactions. You can track your net worth as it grows, which I do, collaborate on finances with a partner, which I do, and create monthly summaries and reports to make your money check-ins stress-free, which I love. Join over 1 million other Monarch users. Head to monarchmoney.com/landing/TFD or the link in our description box and get 50% off your first year with code TFD. If you've ever had 33 different tabs open on your laptop trying to compare the best budgeting for you and slammed your laptop shut out of sheer overwhelm and frustration, this video is for you. Welcome to the 15-Minute Budget, a series dedicated to helping you understand the ideal budget for you based on common personality types that I see as a financial therapist. If we haven't met yet, hello, my name is Lindsay Bryan-Podvin. I'm a licensed social worker, certified financial therapist, and founder of the financial wellness business Mind, Money, Balance. I started out in my career as a social worker helping clients with things like depression and anxiety, and pretty quickly found that there was a theme. Money stress was always there, impacting my clients' overall stress, relationships, work, health, and mental health. I knew I didn't want to shift gears and become a traditional financial planner or financial advisor. I knew I wanted to stay in my lane and continue to do mental health care, but I knew there was also something else that I was missing. I needed more education and information on the psychological, systemic, and sociological side of money, so I sought out additional training in financial therapy. Financial therapy helps people at the intersection of money and mental health. Just like there are therapists who specialize in helping couples or folks who are neurodivergent, financial therapists exist to help people understand their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors around money. Let's get back to the person who is slamming their laptop shut. This is the type of person who I usually consider the overthinking avoider. And the cycle looks something like this. I overthink, and I'm overthinking so much that then I put off the thing I'm supposed to do. I freeze because there are so many different options and don't do anything. And then I go back and think if I start researching and find the right thing, then it'll be okay. You might be an overthinking avoider if you've said, oh, I'll deal with that next week for 6 months straight. You've color-coded spreadsheets, researching every single budgeting method, but never actually started taking action on any of those budgets you researched. You feel so overwhelmed and behind with all of the different options available to you that you stay frozen. And this often looks like researching every single possible path because you think if I just had the information for how this particular thing would look, then I would feel ready to start. But we all know how that goes. Revisit the cycle that I mentioned earlier. You've probably tried downloading different budgeting apps, using them for a few days, and then not opening them again. This can happen for a couple of reasons. One, we don't really account for life or imperfection when we're trying something new. So the first sign of a mistake or feeling behind, our brain goes, uh-oh, failure, let's stop so we don't continue to feel the sensation of feeling like we did something wrong. The second reason that this happens is we assume the tool is the solution. This is like when I buy a desk organizer for my desk, thinking if I had the right shaped box or tool or system, then my desk wouldn't be so messy. When in reality, what I actually need is fewer items on my desk. Another thing you might have tried is writing out the perfect plan, whether it's a 1, 5, or 10-year financial plan. You get it all laid out, and then when you see that beautiful plan all laid out, you find yourself really anxious and overwhelmed because it looks like so many different steps to take, and instead of starting with one step, you go, nope, that's too big of a mountain to climb, I'm just not going to do it at all. This is a protective mechanism that your brain does. We don't like failure, we don't like discomfort, so if we see something that is huge and insurmountable, we just don't start at all. I've heard this from clients, I've heard this from different workshops that I've facilitated with the financial diet, and it often sounds like self-blame. It sounds like people saying, I've tried this particular budgeting system, but it just doesn't work for me. Or, I did it for about a month, but then 3 months in, I realized I'm just not disciplined enough. So if you find yourself in this pattern of being an overthinking avoider, I've got some tips just for you. The first tip is a just one thing money date. This is exactly what it sounds like, is picking just one thing, focusing on that, and avoiding the other things that are on your list. As an overthinking avoider, I have a very strong assumption that you have lots of different options that you could pursue, and all of those different options are quite overwhelming. Instead, just like this tip implies, you're going to focus on one thing. So how do you pick that one thing? Take a moment to complete this sentence. If I just had blank figured out, I'd feel better. What was the blank that you filled in intuitively? Was it taking a look at your income, making consistent retirement contributions, topping off your emergency fund? Whatever your gut and your intuition told you is the thing you need to focus on is a great place to start with your just one thing money date. And in your just one thing money date, you can use that thing as a North Star for a set amount of time. Maybe you focus on it for 1 week, maybe you focus on it for a few months, maybe you focus on it until you achieve that goal, but focus on just that one thing. When we focus on just one thing, it actually is this beautiful ripple effect. When we focus on something like our income or retirement contributions or topping off our emergency fund, it positively impacts other areas of our financial life. So even though your energy is laser focused on one thing, it actually positively impacts other areas of your financial well-being. The second tip for my overthinking avoiders is to right-size the plan. Similar to the last tip of a just one thing money date, focusing on a financial plan that you can actually achieve in the short term. You don't have to throw out that beautiful 12-month plan that you created, but I use this analogy a lot. As a person who likes to read and also hates being spoiled, when I'm reading a book and I don't want to get ahead of myself, I will literally take my hand and cover a part of the paragraph that is below the area that I'm reading so I don't spoil myself. Let's say your plan this year is to save up $3,000 in an emergency fund, and you've broken it down into these 12 steps, basically like one a month is what it comes down to. What you might do is see that whole long list and freak out. Or what you can do is what I do when I'm reading. You take that giant long list, like so, and you simply hide 11 of those 12 steps. Voila! So even though all of the steps are still on this piece of paper, you're only looking at the very first thing on this to-do list. And that makes a huge difference because you know the 11 other steps are there, but you're only seeing and focusing on that very first step. You can do the exact same thing with that beautiful 12-month plan. You don't have to throw it out, but you just want to cover those other items until you first complete that first thing. So it's still there, your brain knows it's there, your body knows it's coming, but you're just focusing on that one thing that will help you achieve that overall financial goal. This also creates something called a positive feedback loop. When you complete step 1 of that 12-step plan, what it does is starts to give you some of that momentum, some of that positive encouragement that says, hey, even though this task feels big, I know that I'm capable. Look, I just achieved the very first thing on that list, and I know that I can work on the next step. Tip number 3 is to make it feel good. So often when we are doing financial planning, we aren't really considering how our environment impacts what we think or what we feel about money. If we are constantly associating filing taxes with being in your dim, dark, dingy basement and sorting through different things from your shoebox, your body is going to start saying, oh, when I look at money, it feels dark, dingy, and overwhelming. We don't want to do that. Instead, we want to create a positive association with our money. So for you, that might be cozying up on your couch with a favorite mug while you look at your spending over the last month. Or if you're the type of person who needs a little bit of external accountability or energy, you can take yourself to a library or a cafe to focus on some of your financial planning. Key here is to make sure that you're not actually logging into any of your financial accounts. It can be a little iffy to do on public Wi-Fi, but rather doing something like a financial plan or dreaming ahead where you're not logging into your accounts. The more we can associate financially related tasks with feeling good or being excited or feeling safe and calm, the more likely it is that we will be able to do it again. Tip number 4 is values-based budgeting. I know TFD talks about this all the time, but essentially it boils down to what do you care about? And is your spending and is your saving actually matching up with the things that you say you care about? That is values-based budgeting. And most budgeting plans focus on telling you, here's how you should spend and here's how you should save, without actually taking a moment to ask you what you really need. I generally really hate comparing money to food, but here's one that actually works. If you are spending time focusing your eating habits on nourishing yourself, a far better approach is to try something like adding color to every meal. By default, that means you're getting in a fruit or a vegetable with every meal. And this is going to be far more sustainable and feel much better for you than doing something like counting every calorie or thinking about the types of food you can't have or aren't allowing yourself. Do the same with your budgeting. Instead of budgeting by restriction and thinking about all the things you can't have, think about the things that you are allowed to have and that your money is affording you to do when you stop spending on the things that don't matter to you. For example, if you value things like joy, calm, meaning, and curiosity, it may make sense to you to spend that money on going to therapy twice a month, a standing coffee date with a friend where you pick up the tab, or a savings goal that supports your next big leap. By default, to spend on those things, you'll have to switch around your spending, and often you'll be able to pull back on the areas that just aren't bringing you those types of values. For folks who have been on the TFD email newsletter for a long time, back in January of 2025, Holly Trantham shared a great example of how she was doing this. She'd set a goal for herself of being on her phone less, but instead of tracking her screen time, she instead thought about, what do I want to do instead of being on my phone? And what she was tracking instead were the 3 things that she wanted to be doing instead. So she tracked things like practicing yoga, reading books, or engaging in crafts. And by focusing on what she was doing more of, she was able to dial back on the amount of time she spent on her screen instead of focusing on, I need to get off of my phone. Tip number 5 is getting comfortable with good enough timers and good enough deadlines. Quick, if I told you you had to pick either a beach vacation or a mountain vacation, which would you choose? Notice how when I gave you a little bit of pressure, you were able to get to your inner wisdom of what feels best for you right now. So giving ourselves these little loving challenges of good enough timers or good enough financial decision deadlines can actually help us get to our inner intuition. So how does a good enough timer work? The way that I recommend this is to set a timer for when you'll focus on a specific budgeting related task. For example, if you're dreading categorizing your expenses, what you can do is set a timer for 10 minutes. During that 10 minutes, you're focusing on just categorizing your expenses for the month, whether that's in an app that you like to do, whether it's by hand or in an Excel sheet. It doesn't matter. But your goal is to focus on just that task for the duration of that 10 minutes. Now, when that timer goes off, you can either say, good enough, I focused on it for 10 minutes and you're all done. Or you can say, ooh, you know what? I only have a few more things to categorize. Let me just finish this task. So either way, you're getting something on that budgeting to-do list done. And once you complete that categorizing task, you'll have more information about where your money is going, and you can revisit the last tip and see, is my spending in alignment with my values or not? Now, what about a good enough deadline? When you are stuck in that analysis paralysis, give yourself a deadline. Just like a few moments ago, I asked you if you wanted to take a beach or a mountain vacation and you were able to go, oh, I want to do this one. We're going to do that same thing. Just like so many of us hit submit on our benefits decisions the very last moment that we are able to do it, having a deadline can be that external accountability or that external motivation to actually complete a task. So giving yourself a good enough deadline can be really helpful if you are struggling to make some sort of financial task. A bonus way for me to hit that good enough deadline is to text a friend at the beginning of the week and let them know when my deadline is. So my text might be, hey, will you text me on Friday to see if I actually filed my quarterly taxes? That way I know I have a deadline of Friday and I'm making sure that I have somebody else who isn't me checking in to make sure I actually completed the task that I wanted to do. So why do I call this a good enough deadline? Because so often in personal finance, we think that once we make a decision or once we meet a deadline, that's it. We can't touch it, we can't modify it, we can't make any decisions. And that's simply not true. Even with things that lock us in for a certain period of time, such as benefits during open enrollment, we will have that particular healthcare plan or dental plan for the year, but it is not true that we have to have that plan forever and ever. So giving yourself a good enough deadline to complete a financial task is incredibly helpful. And when it comes to budgeting, we can use this in a variety of ways. I'm sure you've been at a restaurant before where they give you this giant menu that looks more like a book, and there's a page for appetizers and salads and soups and chicken and veggies and all that stuff. And when the server comes by and asks you what you want to order, it's really challenging to do because there simply are so many options. It's the same thing here with making a good enough decision by giving yourself a deadline. This is the equivalent of throwing that giant menu out and going somewhere where they give you this beautiful 5x7 card that has a couple of appetizer options and a couple of entree options. It's much easier to make a choice when you reduce the amount of choices you have to make. This is decision fatigue 101. So if you are struggling to hit a particular budgeting deadline, maybe remove some of the choices that you have to make. Okay, my overthinking avoiders, I just gave you 5 tips to help you budget based on that personality. As a reminder, they are just one thing money dates, right-sizing your financial plan, making it feel good, values-based budgeting, and good enough timers and deadlines. So based on those 5 tips, I want you to pick one of them that you will do this very week. I am so serious right now. I want you to type it into your phone. I want you to text it to your bestie. I want you to comment here on this video and say what it is that you're going to do and give yourself permission to do that one thing. All right, I'll see you here real soon for the next personality trait in this 15-minute budgeting series. Bye.